Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In my previous video I gave you my first impressions about the Westin ESCAPE CAM. In this video we're going to do a little bit more deep diving into it. So first of all, let's put this camera together. Right, now we've put this camera together, it's time for the acid test. Let's take this out on the water and see how it compares to the Waterwolf 2.0. Okay, I've come down to the river. I've got two setups with me. I've got, on my left hand side here, I've got the new Westin ESCAPE CAM. We're going to run this in parallel with the Waterwolf 2.0 and see how they basically fare together. The weather conditions aren't great. It's winter time at the moment, so the river is a little bit murky, but it's coming out of flood, so we do have visibility in here. What I'm going to do, we're running exactly the same, hopefully exactly the same setup. So a long trace, exactly the same, and exactly the same lures. We've got Westin Ricky the Roaches on here. I'm not expecting to catch anything. This is really more about just seeing how these perform under the water. We're going to do three tests. We're going to test the Westin ESCAPE CAM without any of the stabilization on it, so just straight like this. We're going to then put the diving vane on and see how that affects the footage, and then we'll put the stabilizing vane, which is that sort of triangular thing, on this and see how that affects the footage. And then we'll see how that compares to the footage from the Waterwolf 2.0. Oh, one thing I will mention before I start on this, just transporting these here. So the Westin ESCAPE CAM has no way of actually clipping off, so you have to carry this heavier camera around. Whereas with the Waterwolf, you can actually clip out of its housing, so you're not having to sort of have this heavy thing knocking around, which they do weigh quite a bit. So off the bat, there is some advantage straight off the bat with the Waterwolf, but let's have a look and see how the actual video footage comes out, because that's essentially the most important thing. So I've already put the SD card in here. So to actually start this, you just twist this around to the side. I can see that there's a light beeping in there, so that should be recording now. So it's easy. That's one good thing. Just going to run it slowly. It's not going down very far. It's actually just under the surface. So in a river, that's not massively useful like that. It's running too high. I'd want it to go down further than that. There isn't a huge amount of flow in here, so yeah. I mean, this would be on a lake. This might be a completely different thing because we're having to contend with some current here. I'll just cast it upstream, see how that goes. So you'll probably notice that I'm using a lighter rod on this. So with the Westin ESCAPE CAM, because it's a lighter camera, I can get away with a lighter rod. This is just a 50, I rated up to 50 gram spinning rod. It's a little bit better when you cast upstream. You get a little bit more depth. Okay, I think now we'll try it with the diving vane and see how that affects things. So let's put the diving vane on. So this is the standard configuration, but it does come with the diving vane, which will help it dive down like a crankbait. It's a really neat little design. You don't have to do a huge amount. You just pull that back to there. So you got that. Then you can just push that in. So it goes over the top. Make sure the line clips through there, and then you just push that back on, and it's in and ready to go. So that's it. So that's actually a really neat and nice little feature, and they've obviously designed that properly. Still recording? Yep, okay. So let's cast this out and see if that makes any difference. Okay. Hard to tell if that's actually really helping it get down a huge amount. It's not massively obvious, I've got to say. It's probably putting it maybe half a foot below the surface, as opposed to it coming right up onto the surface. So it is doing something. Noticing a bit more of a wobble on it though. So the diving vane's not doing as much as I thought it would do. It's taking it down probably half a foot below the surface. It's also introducing a bit of a wobble. Be interesting to see how that comes out in the footage. If I'm being honest, it feels sort of negligible, the difference between having that vane on and not. This is me casting it upstream, so coming down with the current, which seems to be better. Okay, let's cast it downstream and work it up against the current. Maybe that's more stable. Okay, so visually from using this diving vane, I'm not 100% sure it did a huge amount. It didn't seem to dive it down a huge amount. It did seem to add a bit more wobble to it, which will be interesting to see in the footage if that does come out. Let's go and put the stabilization fins, which have got a weight on it, to see if it gets it down a little bit further and stabilizes things up. This is the configuration we had with the diving vane. Now we're going to add on this stabilization vane, which has got a weight on it. Hopefully this will bring it down through the water a little bit more and just add a little bit more stability to the camera tracking through the water. Again, nicely thought out. You can just do all of this on the bank. It's all modular, so it just clips around the line and then it just clips in like that and you're ready to go. Okay, let's give it a go and see if that works. Out of like the main flow, it drops like a stone, which is good. Once it gets into the main flow, it doesn't cope with it massively well, but it's doing all right. It's definitely getting it down deeper, and from what I can see, it is stabilizing the path of it. It looks like it's tracking through the water a lot better. Right, let's try it upstream, see how that goes. I'm expecting this to be a lot better upstream. So it should drop down quite a lot when we go upstream. Should have the ability, because it's not fighting against the current, so it should allow it to get down to the bottom. So we tried across stream, now I think, and we tried upstream. Now let's try downstream, see how it works. Yeah, I mean, it's getting down a lot deeper. It's getting down a lot deeper. And it seems like a more stable, it seems more stable. It's not that much deeper, but it is getting down deeper. So what are my thoughts on this? Definitely in the river. I can't stay for still water, but definitely in the river I'd go with this configuration. The extra weight is needed to counteract the current, and also that stabilisation vane visually, it looked like it stabilised out the track. So you'll get less wobbly footage. Right, now let's have a look at the Waterwolf 2.0 and see how that fares. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I'm using a much heavier setup for the Waterwolf 2.0. It's just a heavier all-round camera. So I've brought along my stick bait stroke popping rod, which is rated up to 100 grams, and this sort of feels about right for this. I've put on a medium weight, so the medium weight on here, these are interchangeable, they're still weights. So the heavy one probably felt a little bit too heavy for out here. What I'll just quickly mention about this is actually you can take this off. So you could just put that in your pocket and then you don't have that big camera smashing around, which is something which the Westin camera doesn't do. So that's a bonus in my books. To get this started, you have to have this thing, which is a lens cover. You go through here, get that sealed out. Then you have to push buttons, so you have to turn it on and the lights will start. Yeah, and then I have to press record, at which stage the light will start bleeping. So there is a visual representation that you know that you're recording. And then you just got to be careful to just make sure that there's two rubber gaskets or seals on the back there, and it says you just got to be a bit careful, make sure that they're actually sealed up properly. Then you can put that straight back in there like that, he says, and then that goes like that, and you're ready to go. Okay, so exactly the same. This should be a like-for-like test. Let's see, that's recording. Let's go and chuck this around and see how it fares. Okay. Basically, it's gone down a little bit deeper than the... No. Okay. Yeah, it suffers basically with the same problem that the Westin had, but it suffers with it more. So the Waterwolf had the same problem that the Westin camera had when it was coming across the centre of the river where there was the main flow of the river. And it was basically pulling the camera up onto the surface and sort of skating along the surface a bit. I wouldn't say the river's has got a massive amount of flow at the moment, so I'd say this should be sort of average to normal conditions. Let's try it upstream now and see how it does. Okay, so it's going down nicely. Yeah. Very, very similar. You know, if it's not pulling against anything, it's able to go down and do what it wants to do pretty well. Gets down nice and deep. Okay, so we've tried upstream now. Very similar results to the Westin camera. Came down nicely. It wasn't having to fight against the flow of the river, so it allowed it to drop down. Let's now cast downstream and pull it up against the flow of the river and see how it acts. Oh, that was close. So visually there's a clear winner with the Westin camera when it's coming against the flow of the river, so which you kind of would expect, because like it looks with the diving vane and those stabilization vanes, gives it that edge. I think it allows it to drop down through the water when there's flow coming over it and then stabilize out properly. So I'll do it one more time just to satisfy myself. I'll let it drop down a little bit, but yeah, it's not really, it's coming straight up to the surface. It's not really dealing with getting under the water. You'd have to put a heavier weight on there, I think, which you could do. I should have brought a heavier weight along just to see. Visually, looking at these two cameras side by side, it would be very hard to tell the difference between either camera. Okay, so the final thoughts on this video. Which one would I go for? The Westin ESCAPE CAM or the Waterwolf 2.0? Let's go through this methodically. So first of all, let's have a look at the video footage. Which one produced the better image? The jury's out. Basically, I couldn't tell the difference really between these two cameras. I'd need to see it in much clearer water. Both of them didn't exactly wow me, but I'm sure that in decent water clarity, they perform a lot better. Audio quality, okay, well, that's hands down, the Westin is much better than the Waterwolf, but I'll caveat that with saying that underwater footage and audio, the best you're ever going to use that audio for is maybe wild tracks. Otherwise it's almost useless. Design wise and carrying it around, actually the Waterwolf was a bit better because you could unclip it from its housing, so you didn't have this heavy camera wobbling around when you're trying to get to and from your location. Overall design, for me, the Waterwolf wins hands down. It's a much slimmer, neater design. The ability to turn it off and on whilst it being waterproof is much better, rather than having to take off this seal with gaskets at the back and pressing buttons. So the design of this is much better, and that stabilization fin which comes with it, I think helps this track through the water a lot better. So for my final decision, I would definitely say the Westin ESCAPE CAM wins in this competition. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. It helps me keep this channel running, and I really appreciate any comments which you leave below.